The M16A4, probably the least used assault rifle in Delta Force, and I can imagine for good reason because it's the only one that doesn't offer a fully automatic fire mode. And historically, burst fire rifles aren't that popular in video games because overall their TTK is generally higher than its fully automatic, competitors that are available to the players. And it's really, really hard to actually balance burst rifles in games like Delta Force because if you tune it too high, then the burst just makes it incredibly powerful and it's just going to trump everything else that's available. But then if you don't tune it properly, it becomes a little bit underpowered, which is why people usually kind of stay away from these. But in today's video, I came up with a build for the M16A4 that I really, really enjoy and I feel is just very performant and actually makes the weapon a lot of fun to use. I was having a blast using the M16A4 and I was actually dropping pretty decent kill games with this specific build. So starting off with a clean slate here, we're going to first change out the barrel so you have a lot of barrel options, kind of in the same vein as the M4. You just get a lot of modification options for these specific weapons. So the one that I went with is the AR Trench Standard Barrel Combo. So the reason being, it increases your range by 2 meters. It's not the one that increases your range the most, but there's no other penalties and you get a ton of new slots for attachments. So we go ahead and install that. And then I went with plus 10 millimeters in length to get a little bit of extra muzzle velocity. Next, we're going to put a suppressor on here. So we're going to put the Whisper Tactical Suppressor, which increases your range further by 3 meters. Now you're doing 25 damage per shot up to 35 meters, which is great. And it gives you extra control at the cost of some handling and stability, but we'll make up for that later. And as a bonus, obviously the suppressor does make it less likely for players to be able to spot you as it reduces your minimap visibility when you're firing. For the foregrip, I chose to go with the Competition Hand Stop, so it increases your accuracy drastically and also your handling at the slight cost of control. But considering that this is a burst fire weapon, honestly, I wasn't putting much stats into control because don't really feel like you need it as much because you're not consistently firing the weapon, and it actually handles very well with the control not being like crazy high for an AR. So go ahead and install that. And then I calibrated this with plus 20 millimeters and negative 20 grams to give us a little bit of extra ADS speed and 16% extra stability when moving. For the mag, I actually chose to go with the AR 30 round polymer mag to get some increased stability so there's less aim punch when you're actually getting shot at. The downsides for 45, 60, and the other 60 rounders I feel are just too high, which is why I chose to go with this one. And then I went and put a mag assist here. Of course, you can put a bigger mag here if you choose that 60 round, or if you feel like 30 rounds isn't enough, sorry. And then for the grip, I chose to go with the AR Heavy Tower Grip. Again, positives across the board, probably one of the better grips in the game. And then I calibrated this with negative 20 millimeters to get a little bit of extra hipfire aim speed. For the grip mount, I chose to go with the stable grip base in this case, giving us further stability, a little bit of control at the slight cost of handling, but we'll make up for that later. So go ahead and install that. For the stock, I chose to go with the Shadow Buffer Tube stock. So this gives us plus 10 handling, plus 2 control, slight cost and stability. Again, not too bad here. Go ahead and install that. And then I calibrated this with plus 50 grams to get some slight extra control, albeit it doesn't make that big of a difference. I could have probably even put it at negative 6% to get a little bit more aiming stability when breathing. But overall, not using this weapon at super crazy ranges, so the aiming stability while breathing is not that much of a necessity in this case. So for the sight, I chose to go with a micro sight riser here because you can put a laser device on the front here. So go ahead and install that. And then I just put a basic sight on here. So my XRO quick response sight, which I then calibrated with plus 25 X zoom and negative 20 millimeters in eye relief. And then for all these patches here, so the only one that you can't actually put a handguard panel on is the upper rail. So I just went ahead and put the LA3C green laser light on this one. And then for these three, I put the Hornet handguard panel to increase the accuracy more so that I can hip fire easier when I need to. And then for the two front ones here, I went with the DD Python handguard panel to increase the handling a little bit further, get that ADS speed up and make it a little bit snappier. With the weapon that you're shooting in burst, you want to be faster than the enemy to be able to ADS. Otherwise, you might not come out of that firefight alive. So I was really reluctant to make an M16A4 build at first because I was like, burst fire weapons and like pretty much all the games that are similar to Delta Force, they're just garbage. Unless you can one burst down an enemy, for the most part, you're going to be out DPS'd by pretty much all the fully automatic weapons that are available because you just can't output that many rounds compared to them. They can just obviously hold click and they're going to keep shooting until they run out of ammo. As for the burst fire, you need to consistently click to get those bullets out. But This specific build, I tried a few different ones, some at longer ranges, absolute trash. Really have to have that ADS speed snappy and be able to hip fire or point fire it in closer range engagements, because you really don't want to be ADSing in that case. And it actually performed very, very well. I was pleasantly surprised by how good I was doing with the M16A4 with this specific build. Obviously, you could put longer barrels on here, but I felt that they weren't worth the trade-off in this specific case. And the control, I didn't put many points into that because, again, it doesn't feel all that necessary for a burst fire weapon. You can pretty easily get the 3 shots on target at those 30-ish 35-40 meter ranges without too much difficulty. And the actual biggest thing that I found was a benefit for the M16A4 is the speed at which those 3 rounds come out when you are burst firing it. You can get enemy kills really, really quickly with this, especially if you're aiming for head. If you're getting all 3 headshots or 2 headshots plus a body shot, that's a kill within that 35 meter range. So if you're aiming for the head, you can just delete people in a snap of a finger, which is where this weapon really, really shines. Now, you're not really going to be competing with something that can do damage similar to this at longer ranges, and obviously fully automatic weapons in CQB engagements, albeit you can, and that suppressor that you have on there really helps you out to get the drop on people that maybe don't know where you were because you were firing a suppressed weapon. Now, the one thing that I don't really like is kind of like the trigger delay, something with input queuing. So if you spam the mouse button multiple times, it'll input all those multiple clicks, and then you'll fire the weapon that amount of clicks. So if you spam it 3 times real fast, you're going to shoot 3 times, but obviously there's that trigger delay in between bursts. So sometimes you can end up expending more ammo after having killed somebody because you click too many times. So that's kind of a downside of obviously having a 30-round magazine, because you get 10 bursts before you need to reload. But I just didn't feel like it was worth the downsides of the 60 rounders or the 45 rounders. So this weapon, you get it as soon as you start playing Delta Force, so there's no unlock requirements. In order to use this specific build, you need to level up the M16A4 to level 51, at which point you'll unlock the Whisper Tactical Suppressor. So not that high in the actual leveling process of this weapon. The max is 75, but you can forego that suppressor a little bit. And same thing for the stock, it's only 2 levels lower than the suppressor, or 4, something like that. So you can use this build or similar to this build at a much lower level. And if you haven't tried the M16A4 yet, I would highly recommend you do. Maybe you're going to find your new favorite weapon, because when you are pulling off those 2 headshots, 1 body shot in CQB, you are deleting people incredibly fast, and it feels so good. Considering that it's a weapon that, not a lot of people run, it feels fun to use something that's just not the overall meta, for lack of a better word, in Delta Force. It just shakes it up a little bit, mixes up what you use. But definitely give this weapon a try. Don't sleep on it. The weapon share code will be in the description down below, as well as in the top pinned comment. Let me know what you think about this weapon. I'll leave you with some highlights of me using this specific build. In any case, hit the like button if you enjoyed the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and as always, thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a good one.
Take this med kit! Be there in a jiffy! Try not to get yourself hurt, alright? Someone help! Not very much! Take a strong dose! Patch yourself up!